opinion, Hansen and Steve Tew will probably be tuning into the Football World Cup when they can. There are always new ideas to be taken away from these huge tournaments. Modern sports speak, which Hansen likes to indulge in on occasion, calls them learnings. So just what can the All Blacks learn ahead of their own World Cup next year? Learn from other sports, and the learnings list is learning itself. The All Blacks have been pretty good at this over the years. They have particularly taken techniques and ideas from rugby league and Aussie rules, but they need to remain innovative if they're to stay ahead. This is the sort of stuff that Professor Wayne Smith does well, and his departure may make the All Blacks less open-minded than they have been in their 2 World Cup wins. England football coach Gareth Southgate has taken all sorts of ideas from other sports, and the result is one of the most united and resilient England squads in recent memory. Southgate even took from the All Blacks by asking a distinguished former player to give the England jersey to new caps. The England manager has also borrowed heavily from American sports. Southgate went to an NBA match between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Milwaukee Bucks. He was particularly interested in how players block off on court in order to create space. Southgate has introduced of those techniques into England's play at corners and free kicks, where they have been particularly effective. While other teams are still grappling like 1980 Italians in getting penalised by VAR as a result, England play with line formations that are difficult to mark, with some players peeling off in different directions and others blocking out the key defenders. Southgate has also borrowed from the Super Bowl. The Americans are expert at handling the media, something that remains a major All Blacks flaw, and contributes to why they remain unloved in some parts of the world. It's not envy. The French, Ireland, South Africa and Britain would love to love the Abs. But at times it is like talking to a black Lego man. The unresponsiveness is compounded by a lack of access and the little knowing smiles between players when they turn up, in pairs. England's football players have behaved in the same dull way over recent years. And so Southgate took an idea from Super Bowl. Ahead of this World Cup, the entire England squad sat down in a hall and were available to everyone and for any question. There were no media minders looking over their shoulder. Just a big hall with a 45-minute clock ticking down. The players had fun, and for the first time in years the media was able to present football people to the public. The All Blacks, who tend to suffer from control freakery, would do well to loosen up in the same way ahead of Japan. Germany, for the first time one of the big 3, Germany, Brazil and Argentina, will not be in the semi-finals of the World Cup. This is what happens when a great side like Germany becomes stale and isolated. This is what will happen to the All Blacks unless they are careful. German manager Joachim Löw has been a great leader, but had been in the top job since 2008. Inevitably he developed favourites. A schism developed in the squad between the older players, who were perceived as privileged, and the younger players. This is a real danger with the current All Blacks. Germany were also cut off in Russia at an almost fortified base, surrounded by forest and 40 kilometers from Moscow. The players needed to ask permission to see their wives and children in the build-up to the tournament, and then forbidden contact during the World Cup. Social media was banned. Again, the All Blacks should beware. They have made these sorts of mistakes in the past. 5 of the coaches that made football's quarter-finals took over their teams in 2016 and 1 in 2017. Only Didier Deschamps with France, 2012, and Oscar Tabarez of Uruguay, 2006, have been there longer, and Tabarez lost to the younger man in the quarters. Belgium embraced a new tactical approach in their quarter win over Brazil. Would they have been so flexible if the coach had been there for years, or would some have been muttering about another kooky master plan? Football coaches don't get to spend as long with the team as rugby coaches, but fresh ideas have been a theme at this World Cup. Tew should also note that the German Federation gave Lowe a new 4-year contract ahead of the World Cup. That decision has left them exposed. It appears Lowe is now staying on at the head of a team in a country that no longer really wants him. Scandal: the All Blacks know how debilitating this can be. Mesut Ozil and İlkay Gundogan, supposedly of Germany, met the Turkish president before the World Cup. Gundogan gave the Turkish leader a jersey signed "To my president." Much of Germany, including leader Angela Merkel, was outraged. Spain's coach Julen Lopetegui signed a deal to take over with Real Madrid just before the World Cup. He kept negotiations secret and did it despite being contracted to the Spanish Federation. Luis Rubiales, the president of the Spanish Federation, said, "There is a way to act and behave," and sacked Lopetegui. He brought in Fernando Hierro, a decent man and a non-existent coach, to fill the gap. Lopetegui was unbeaten in his 20 games as Spain's manager. Hierro, inexplicable, decided not to start Iniesta against Russia and Spain went out, despite being on the easy half of the draw. New ideas are good, but that was way too sudden and disruptive. The top 4 teams at the World Cup win $38, $28, $24 and $22 million respectively. Losing quarter-finalists get $16 million. Spain left with $12 million. Just how much money did Rubiales' principles cost Spain? Somehow I can't see Tew making that mistake. The All Blacks have always been good at practicing skills. England's football team, not so much. Successive England managers came out with the tired old trope that you couldn't really practice penalties because you could never reproduce the pressure. I once spoke to Dave Orrid, the kicking coach of Johnny Wilkinson, about this. Orrid thought the idea ridiculous. He said you teach the players to shoot with their big muscles, rotating through the ball. It's the small muscles that are vulnerable through tiredness and nerves, so minimize their influence. And routine. Like taking a penalty in rugby. England have changed their ways, practiced properly and lo and behold, have actually won a World Cup shootout with 5 well-taken penalties. As Southgate said, it's not about luck, it's about performing a skill under pressure. Probably won't last though. Discipline: Japan's discipline nearly got them to the quarterfinals for the first time. Colombia melted down against England and should have had at least one player sent off. They spent so long arguing that 3 minutes and 30 seconds elapsed between the offense and the taking of a first-half free kick. The same length of outrage dispute preceded the taking of a second-half penalty. This All Blacks team is vulnerable around discipline and have started to cross the mark between influencing referees and haranguing them. Maybe Hansen needs to buy himself a waistcoat. John Lewis's sales have trebled in the last year since Southgate began wearing one, and get his team to calm down. Stuff promoted, stories recommended by